What if I told you that most people who read Psalm 91 are reading it completely wrong? Not wrong in terms of the words, because the words are perfect. Wrong in terms of the intention, the timing, and the understanding behind those words. And because of that one mistake, they are reading one of the most powerful texts in all of human history and experiencing almost nothing from it. I know that might surprise you. It surprised me too, the first time I truly understood what this psalm was actually doing. Let me tell you something that happened to a student of mine many years ago. His name was David, a quiet man, a good man, who had been going through one of the darkest periods of his life. He had lost his job, his marriage was under enormous strain, and he felt like no matter what he prayed, no matter what he asked, the heavens were simply closed. He came to me one afternoon, and he said, "Rabbi, I read Psalm 91 every single day. I read it in the morning, I read it at night. Why is nothing changing? Why does it feel like my words are hitting a ceiling and coming right back down?" And I looked at him and I said, "David, can you tell me what you're thinking about when you read it?" And he said, "I think about my problems. I think about how much I need things to change." And I understood in that moment exactly what was happening. What I shared with him that afternoon, and what I'm going to share with you today, is something that goes far deeper than simply reciting words from a page. By the time this video is over, you are going to understand the hidden mechanism inside Psalm 91, why it works the way it works, what most people are missing, and exactly how to read it in a way that activates its full spiritual power within 24 hours. And I want to be very clear about something. I do not say 24 hours to excite you or to make a promise I cannot back up. I say it because there is a specific teaching rooted in Kabbalah and ancient rabbinic tradition that explains precisely why the timing of this psalm matters and what happens in the spiritual realm the moment it is read correctly. Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you is not what you have heard before. Let me start with what you already know, or what you think you know. Most people treat Psalm 91 like a protective shield. They read it because they are afraid of something, because danger is near, because they feel vulnerable, because life has been hitting hard. And there is nothing wrong with that. King David himself wrote from places of fear and desperation. The Psalms are not spiritual theory. They are the raw, honest cry of a human being reaching toward the divine. So the impulse to reach for Psalm 91 in moments of difficulty is not wrong. It is actually beautiful. But here is where things start to go sideways for most people. When you read Psalm 91 as a reaction to fear, you are reading it from inside the problem. You are reading it from the position of someone who is drowning and hoping that the words will throw them a rope. And what the rabbis teach us, going back to the Talmud in Tractate Berachot, is that prayer and sacred text have the greatest power not when they are spoken from inside the storm, but when they are spoken from a place of connection, trust, and elevation. The Talmud teaches us that a person should not stand to pray except from a place of gravity and humility, from a settled, intentional state. This is not about pretending you are not afraid. This is about something much more sophisticated and much more powerful. Imagine for a moment that you have a radio transmitter. The words of Psalm 91 are the signal you are trying to send. But if the transmitter is broken, if it is filled with static, with fear, with anxiety, with the noise of everything that is going wrong, the signal never goes out clearly. It gets fragmented, it gets lost, and you wonder why nothing is reaching its destination. This is exactly what most people are experiencing, and they blame the psalm, or they blame themselves, or they conclude that prayer simply does not work for them personally. But the truth, the real truth rooted in thousands of years of Jewish wisdom, is that they simply have not been taught how to tune the transmitter. Let me tell you about the hidden structure of Psalm 91 that almost no one talks about, because this is where everything changes. The psalm opens with a declaration, Yoshev Biseta Elyon, Betzel Shaddai Yitlonan. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. That first word, Yoshev, which means to dwell or to sit, is not accidental. The Kabbalists, particularly in the tradition of the Ari, Rabbi Isaac Luria, who was one of the greatest mystical minds in Jewish history, teach that this word Yoshev implies a state of settled permanence, not a visit, not a moment of connection when you are desperate, a dwelling, a consistent inhabiting of the divine presence. And here is the critical insight, the protection described in this psalm, the protection from pestilence, from danger, from the things that go bump in the darkness of your life. That protection is described as something that flows naturally to someone who already dwells there, not to someone who runs there when the fire starts. This changes everything about how you approach the psalm, and this is where I need you to really hear what I am saying, because I know some of you right now are thinking, okay, but that sounds nice in theory. I am dealing with real problems. I do not have the luxury of dwelling in divine peace when I cannot pay my rent, or when my health is failing, or when my relationship is falling apart. I hear you. I have heard this from hundreds of people over the years. And this is exactly why I want to share with you what I call the preparation principle, because the method I am going to give you at the end of this video addresses this challenge directly and specifically. But first, I need to tell you about King Solomon, and a teaching that has stayed with me for decades. You remember that Solomon was given an extraordinary gift. In the book of Kings, chapter 3, Solomon has a dream, and God appears to him and says, "Ask for whatever you want me to give you." And what does Solomon ask for? Not wealth, not long life, not victory over his enemies. He asks for a lev shoma, a listening heart, the wisdom to discern between good and evil, to lead the people well. And because he asked for wisdom first, because he oriented himself toward understanding and connection rather than toward his problems, everything else was added to him. His wealth became legendary. His protection became legendary. His reign became legendary. But it all started with the orientation of his heart. This is the pattern that runs through the entire Torah. Abraham was called to leave everything he knew, his home, his family, his security, and to go towards something he could not see. And the moment he oriented himself in faith and trust rather than in fear, the blessings flowed. The protection came. The covenant was established. This is not coincidence. This is the architecture of how divine blessing actually works. And Psalm 91 encodes this same architecture in every single verse. Let me walk you through what the psalm is actually doing, because when you understand the structure, you will never read it the same way again. The first two verses are spoken by the psalmist about a person who dwells with God. They are a statement of principle. Then, starting in verse 3, something changes. The text shifts. It says, "He will deliver you from the trapper's snare, from the devastating pestilence." Suddenly it becomes personal. It becomes intimate. It becomes a direct promise to you, the reader. And the rabbis ask, why this shift? Why does the psalm start in the third person and then become second person? And the answer they give is breathtaking, because the first two verses are what you declare. They are your act of faith, your statement of where you choose to dwell spiritually. And once you make that declaration with genuine intention, with what the Kabbalists call kavanah, which means directed spiritual focus, once you make it with real kavanah, the entire universe, the entire spiritual structure of creation responds to you personally. The psalm shifts because you have shifted. And here is what I want you to pay attention to, because this is the moment where most people make the second great mistake. When they read the protective promises in the middle of the psalm, the verses about being guarded by angels, about the lion and the serpent not being able to harm them, They read them as things they are hoping will happen, as requests, as wishes. But these are not requests. These are declarations of spiritual reality for someone who has made the first 2 verses true in their own heart. This is the difference between reading the psalm as a beggar and reading it as someone who knows who they are and whose protection they stand under. But wait, because what I am about to share next is the part that most people never hear, and it is the part that explains the 24 hours. In Kabbalistic tradition, there is a teaching about the relationship between speech, intention, and spiritual reality. When a human being speaks words of Torah, of sacred text, with full kavanah, those words create what is called a kli, which means a vessel or a container in the spiritual realm. And this vessel is capable of holding divine light and divine blessing. But the vessel has to be shaped correctly. A cracked vessel cannot hold anything, and a vessel filled with fear and noise before the words are even spoken cannot receive what the words are designed to bring. The 24-hour window is not magic. It is not a promise that your problems will disappear by sunrise. But here is what happens within 24 hours when you read Psalm 91 correctly, with the preparation I will describe, with the right kavanah, and at the right time. Within 24 hours, a shift begins in the spiritual dimensions that surround your life. Things that were blocked begin to loosen. Conversations that needed to happen begin to happen. Opportunities that were hidden begin to surface, not always dramatically, not always in the way you expected. But the movement begins, and more importantly, you will feel it. You will feel a change in your own interior landscape that tells you something has shifted, something has responded. Let me now give you the exact method, step by step, because vague spiritual instruction helps no one. This is too important to leave general. The first step is preparation, and it happens before you open the psalm at all. You need to give yourself between 5 and 10 minutes of complete stillness. Not meditation in a generic sense, but a deliberate act of what the tradition calls hachana, preparation. In this preparation, you are going to do one specific thing. You are going to recall a moment in your own life, even a small moment, when something good happened unexpectedly, when you received help you did not expect, when a door opened, when something worked out. Every person has at least one of these moments. I want you to hold that memory deliberately, because this memory is not just a nice feeling. It is evidence. It is your personal testimony that the divine presence has been active in your life, and it shifts your interior state from fear to faith, which is exactly the state from which the psalm must be read. The second step is to say the opening 2 verses of Psalm 91 out loud. Not in your head, out loud. This matters enormously. The Hebrew word for universe, olam, shares its root with the word he'elam, which means hiddenness. The physical world is the world of hiddenness, and speech is the act by which we bridge the hidden with the revealed. When you speak the words, you are doing something real in the world. Say the first 2 verses and pause after them. Do not rush. Let the declaration settle. You are telling the universe where you stand. Take that seriously. The third step is to read the entire psalm from beginning to end, slowly, in whatever language you understand most deeply. If you know Hebrew, read it in Hebrew. But do not sacrifice understanding for language. The Rambam, Maimonides himself, taught that intention without comprehension is like a body without a soul. Read it in English, if that is what you understand. Read it word by word, and as you read each protective promise, I want you to receive it. Not hope for it, not wish for it. Receive it as something true right now. This is what kavanah means in practice. The fourth step, when you reach verse 11, where it says, He will instruct His angels for you to guard you in all your paths. I want you to pause. This is the moment in the psalm where the Kabbalists say, the vessel is fully formed. At this moment, you speak directly and personally. You say out loud what it is you need. Not a list of everything that is wrong. One thing, the most essential thing, the thing beneath all the other things. You name it, you speak it clearly, and then you continue reading the psalm to its end. The fifth step, and this is the one people skip, is gratitude before the outcome. The psalm ends with one of the most important verses in all of Scripture. He will call to me and I will answer him. God says, I will be with him in distress, I will rescue him and honor him. This is a promise made in the first person by the divine itself. After you finish reading, you say thank you, not for what you hope will happen, for what you know is now in motion. This is not fake positivity. This is the practice of emuna, which means deep faith, the kind that sees the invisible movement before the visible result. And the timing. Do this at night, within 1 hour before you sleep. Why at night? Because in Kabbalistic teaching, the nighttime hours, particularly those before midnight, are described as a time of elevated divine presence, of closeness between the upper worlds and the lower world. The Zohar, the foundational text of Jewish mysticism, speaks about the midnight hour as a time when the Holy One, blessed be He, enters the Garden of Eden, and the divine presence draws near. You are not trying to catch God at a convenient time, but you are aligning yourself with a rhythm that the tradition has recognized for thousands of years as particularly potent for prayer and transformation. Do this once tonight, and then again tomorrow night, and then for 7 nights in a row. The number 7 in Jewish tradition represents completeness, a full cycle, 7 days of creation, 7 years of the Shemitah, 7 weeks from Passover to Shavuot. When you commit to 7 nights of reading Psalm 91 with full preparation and kavana, you are not just praying once and hoping. You are building a consistent spiritual dwelling place. You are becoming the Yoshev, the one who dwells, that the very first word of the psalm describes. Let me tell you what happened to David, the student I mentioned at the beginning. I gave him this exact practice, not 100 complicated things, just this. And he came back to me 3 weeks later. His job situation had not fully resolved, but 2 things had changed. First, he had received a completely unexpected call from an old colleague that opened a door he did not even know existed. And second, and more important, something in him had changed. The fear that had been controlling every hour of his day had lifted, not because his circumstances were perfect, but because he had found the thing that Psalm 91 actually offers in its deepest reading, the knowledge that you are not alone in this, that the protection is real, that the divine presence is not distant or disinterested, but actively engaged with your life. That shift, that interior shift, is the real miracle of this psalm. Everything else, the opportunities, the healings, the financial turns, those follow. They always follow. But they follow the inner shift. If you are watching this, and you are in a difficult season, I want you to hear this directly from me. Your situation is not beyond reach. What feels impossible to you is completely visible to the one who made you. The challenges that have been weighing on you, the things you carry alone in the quiet hours of the night, they are known. And this psalm, read the way I have just described, is not just a text. It is a direct line of communication, tested and refined over thousands of years by people who faced darkness far greater than anything most of us will ever experience, and who emerged into light. Do not let another night pass without doing this. Tonight, before you sleep, give yourself 10 minutes of preparation. Remember your moment of unexpected grace. Read the 2 opening verses out loud. Read the entire psalm slowly, receiving every promise. Pause at verse 11 and speak your need. Finish with gratitude, and repeat this for 7 nights. That is all I am asking. 7 nights. And watch what happens in your life. I want to leave you with a blessing that has been passed down through generations of my teachers, and that I say to you now with complete sincerity. Yevarechecha Hashem v'yishmerecha. May God bless you and keep you. May this psalm be a shelter over you and over everyone you love. May the words you speak tonight open doors that have been closed and bring light into places that have felt very dark for a very long time. That is my prayer for you. If this teaching has touched your heart, please share it with someone in your life who needs to hear it. You have no idea who in your circle is sitting quietly with a fear or a burden that they have not told anyone about. This might be exactly what they need. And if you want to continue receiving these kinds of teachings, the ones that go deeper than the surface, the ones rooted in real Torah wisdom, please subscribe to this channel. I share something new every week, and what we have ahead in coming videos goes even deeper into the hidden power of specific psalms and prayers that can genuinely transform your daily life. I am grateful you were here today. Go now and read that psalm.